Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today I thought I'd do a video regarding some baits that I purchased with very low expectations and lo and behold actually turned into something pretty good and are baits that I use on a regular basis. I being a tackle junkie, I like to purchase a bunch of tackle. Whether it's something that catches my eye, maybe I'm scrolling Tackle Warehouse or maybe I'm at a flea market. If I see something that looks different, a lot of times I'll pick them up just to kind of see if I can figure the bait out. At the same time, a lot of times there's baits that kind of hit the market and there's a lot of talk about them. And I tend to purchase one or two just to kind of see what all the fuss is about and make a determination for myself whether or not I like the bait. And in a lot of instances, I find that I don't like the bait. In some instances, I find that I do like the bait. But I tend to feel like the majority of the time, if I see a bait, when it's sitting in the package or I read the description on it, I'm kind of like, yeah, I think that's gonna work, or no, I don't think that's gonna work. And I tend to feel like generally once I use the bait, I come to the same conclusion. But once in a while, I do have a bait that I look at and I go, I'm not sure that that's going to work. That I find to my surprise that it actually does work very well. So today I thought I'd go over what do I got? Four baits here that when I first saw it or first heard about it, I kind of was like, nah, I don't know if I believe that that's going to work that well. But they all really have exceeded my expectations. So let's just go down the list here. I'd love to know from you guys as well in the comment section. What are some baits that you had very low expectations for that you found actually are very good at catching fish? So the first one that I'm going to share with you today is this guy right here. This is a Jackal Pompadour. They make the full size one like this. There's also a junior size. So this was a bait that I kind of had mixed expectations on. I've always been a big fan of throwing creeper style baits, which is what I refer to this as in the musky world. But I've never really found one that I thought would work extremely well for bass. There are some baits out there like the Head and Crazy Crawler that I've used, but a lot of times I've found that they don't perform as well as I'd like in a smaller version. So, generally, what I mean by that is the musky baits seem to work better because they're bigger, they're heavier, you can cast them well. The wings are like 3 inches long. They just seem to perform a lot better for me than some of the smaller versions that we had in the bass world, like the Head and Crazy Crawler, which does work, but it can be a frustrating bait for me because it doesn't cast that well and it also has the tendency to really catch the line and just follow up pretty well. So when I first saw the pompadour, I was like, well, I like creepers. I'm going to give it a try, but my expectations are low. And this one has really done a very good job at exceeding my overall expectations for a couple of reasons. One, it casts very well, and two, it tends to run accurately and it doesn't foul much at all. And I think that just has to do with the design of the bait. It does catch a lot of fish. For me, it's more about quality fish than numbers of fish. But it's a bait that, I don't want to say looked gimmicky because I understood the power of the creeper in the musky world, but I've just had yet to really see a good bass version. And this Jackal Pompadour has done a very good job. Creepers are really fun baits to fish. If you're not familiar with them, they always, to me, they remind me of somebody swimming through the water. When you see them coming in, they just kind of are walking side to side, making a lot of noise. They're very slow baits to use. So for me, I don't necessarily want to go just fan cast a big flat. I really like to throw around specific targets because it's a very slow retrieve to get them to run right, but they at times are just the best top water to throw. And this pompadour really, for me, has equated the musky world finally over to the bass world. I was waiting for a good one to come out for a long time, and Jackal did it. I mean, it's been out for several years now, but it's a really good one. But my expectations were low for it when it first came out. So I was very happy to see that and actually have a creeper that I use in the bass world now. So that was one bait. Another bait was this guy right here. This is the Berkley power switch. So when I first saw this, I kind of was like, well, it's a pre-molded jig head in the body. I'm not expecting it to have much action. I know there was some hype around it, but I just didn't expect it to do much. You know, when I first saw it, I kind of thought it was more along the lines of just your jig head minnow, but in reality, it's so much more because the weight placement in this allows the bait to dart through the water extremely quickly, very similar to the Berkley finisher, which is a hard bait that they have. But this bait with little rod twitches will just zigzag all over the place under the water and has a very erratic motion that is very good at generating strikes. I've used this bait quite a bit in various sizes. I caught my biggest bass of the year on the Bass Pro Tour this past season. It was a 8.5 pounder. I think it was 8.8. Toledo Bend on it. Caught a bunch of fours, a bunch of fives. You can go back and watch that video if you want. But this is the bait I was using. This is the little, what is this? The 1/4 ounce. I was throwing the 3/8 ounce, so it's a little bit bigger. But just overall, really exceeded my expectations from a movement more than anything. When you get this in the water and you give it some rod twitches, you'll see very quickly why it's an effective bait at generating reaction strikes. But from an appearance standpoint, at least in my opinion, it didn't look like anything special. But it's got movement unlike pretty much every other soft plastic bait on the market. So that was one that I'm very happy exceeded my expectations to the point of an 8.5 pounder this past year. That was the biggest fish all year that I caught. Now that I think about it, not just in tournaments. Another one is the TwoWay by Raid. So this was a purchase I made uh, just out of just out of more than anything, just curiosity. I was on Tackle Warehouse one day and I saw it and I was like, this looks pretty ridiculous. I had never heard about it, didn't know anything at all about it, other than the fact that there was some talk at that point about how baits with tentacles were starting to get hot. So I was like, you know what, I want to try this. They talk about it as being a wacky rig bait, and I ordered this size, which is the Magnum, and then I ordered some all the way down to their little ones that are probably, I think they're an inch and a half long. Uh, but this bait's really done well for me. Now in the water, it doesn't look like much more than what it is. It looks like a centipede with a bunch of tentacles. It doesn't really do anything crazy in the water, but I will say it's caught some really big bass for me this year. Both this one, the Magnum, as well as the little 2 inch one or inch and a half one. I've caught some really big smallmouth on that as well. It's one of those baits that I still pick up and I go, it just doesn't make sense to me, but the fish seem to like it. So I've had really good success on it. And I when I got them and I pulled them out of the package, they looked very gimmicky to me. But they generate bites. They catch fish. That's all I can say about those things. And then one other bait I kind of grabbed that this may surprise some of you guys, but this is just the mini probzz, the Strike King mini probzz, an 1/8 ounce buzz bait. And it's not really necessarily this bait specifically, but more of your small 1/8 ounce buzz baits. You know, I remember reading an article, this was years ago, on little 1/8 ounce buzz baits and how they were very effective at generating bites, especially post spawn when the fish are a little bit more lethargic and they want a small bait and they've got a bunch of their fry that are, they're guarding. Uh, and I just remember reading an article, and so I ordered a couple and I got them and I pulled them out of the package and I'm like, this stupid little thing, why not just throw like a 1/4 ounce buzzbait, which is a little bigger, it'll move a little bit more water. And the first time I took this out was on a lake in northern Indiana and I went to pounding on them. Now, I will say a lot of the fish I catch are not real big, 12, 13, 14 inchers, but you'll still generate some really big strikes from it. And the funny thing is, I know it's a buzzbait. It's not necessarily like a buzzbait in the water. A buzzbait in the water, you get a lot of movement, a lot of squeaks, a lot of just commotion. This is not really in that same category. It's almost like a really fine little buzz that just sprays on the water. It's very, very finessey when you compare it to normal buzzbait, especially when you think about all the buzzbaits that are out there that have like clackers or double buzzes and are meant to just create a ton of commotion. This doesn't. This just kind of comes across the water, very, very finessey, just creates a little buzz, a little spray, and it generates a lot of strikes. It is not intimidating at all to the fish. And for me, there are a lot of times, like I said, a lot of times in the post spawn period where this bait will get more strikes than anything else. So, not that I was super surprised that the buzz bait worked. It was more about how good the little 1/8 ounce size, these little buzz baits can be. Um, Man, and there's a lot of other people that I talk to that feel the same way about it. So that was one that really took me off guard. I was not expecting a little buzz bait to be as good as it was. But that's 4 baits right there, guys, that I've been using for a long time now, had some extremely good success, and they were ones where my expectations were not very high for them, but they were definitely exceeded after using them. So let me know in the comment section, what are some of the baits that your expectations of were low and turned out that the bait was actually pretty good? I'd love to hear from you guys as well. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned. We'll have a new one coming out later today, tomorrow.